Previous guest writes the first question. Sir, I'm going to turn it over to you and you can kick us off.
All right. So the question is, what was the moment that made you realize you needed to make a change in your life? So looking at this, I take this question as I've been in the military and going towards during my career is, when do I need to start that look to get out? Right. That's the way I took this question. And so this takes me back to when I was a staff sergeant in E6 in the Marine Corps. And I had some financial things going on that made me concerned for my clearance. And it made me think, when if I was to have to get out of the military today, what would that look like? And how would I be able to provide for my family? And so that moment is what made me change the whole trajectory and attitude as of transition. And I think it was that moment, as I look back, that really is where I started my transition, because I started going to school. Previously, if you're in the military and you're getting promoted, you're feeling this motivation every time you get promoted. And what it often does is it clouds your ability to see what you need to do for the future. And in the enlisted ranks, most of us don't have a degree. And because you're getting promoted and because you're making more money, you don't think about that, at least from my perspective. And I see it a lot in enlisted Marines. And so that moment made me just do a little bit of self-reflection and see what I needed to do. Obviously, there's some time in there for some stress and anxiety, and then just started fixing the issue with the financial piece, and also started going to school, basically controlling what I can control. And that set me up for a better transition later in my life. So.
When you said you were in E6, how many years were you in at that?
I was in about 11, 12 years. And it was just a lot of things going on in my life at that time.
To that point, had you given much thought to transitioning out? Or were you just kind of more day to day, like, hey, I'm just not, I don't want to use the term enjoying your career, but I was just taking my career day to day?
Yeah, I mean, like when I joined the Marine Corps, and this is a lot of Marines that listen to this will laugh, but I joined the Marine Corps because I wanted education. And then I joined the Marine Corps for the pride of belonging of Marines. And so I just was going to do my first 4 years and get out and go to school. But each time I had this assessment, in the moment I said, hey, I'm getting out at the end of 4 years. And then when that moment came and I wasn't prepared, then I said, hey, you know what? I could do another 4. I got married at the end of my first enlistment. Then I had a child at the end of my second. So it was this kind of like cascading thing where I'm in a comfort zone. And I continued to stay in. In that moment, I was 2 kids at the time, young kids, and had just returned from Afghanistan. And so I was saying, hey, I'm going to stay in. But then some of that stuff came up and it made me worried. I never got any negative or anything bad from it, but I fixed it. It just made me do some self-reflection and say, hey, maybe what I'm doing in my day-to-day career and being only focused on today and making money today and not thinking about what's the end of my career looks like needs to change.
Can we talk about what those concerns were? You mentioned your TS clearance. So was it more a concern of losing your clearance and losing your job status while you were in, or were you already kind of thinking about what you could use it for on the outside?
Yeah, I wanted to keep my clearance on the outside, and I also wanted to keep my my job. When you go through those situations and you have kind of this safety net and you're getting paid all the time, and now you're have to make a choice as to what's next in that moment, and you haven't done any thinking, that can be very terrifying. And in that moment, I didn't think about kind of like the longer repercussions until it was like, hey, this is a situation and you got to take care of this. If you don't take care of this, it's going to be a problem moving forward in your career. And being in communications, you have to have a clearance. So that's not, you lose your clearance and then what? And at that moment in education and the being in the military and experience, I didn't know what that looked like.
To that point, had you been going to any actual advanced schooling, college, anything like that?
No. I was always interested. I tried once when I was a sergeant. You know, when you're young in your career, you're like, I'll do it when I get promoted. And that's such an ignorant statement, looking back on it. Because the more you get promoted, the more responsibilities you have. Try to do it as a sergeant, and I'm like, this is not it, because I was the main point, right? So you don't have a lot of time to really study and do what's required for school as a sergeant. And what I realized in that moment from that, looking back, is there's this excuse of time, right? So when I was 21, sergeant, the excuse was I don't have time. And what I realized there is
there's a moment in life when you realize it was never about you. Grind, spelled GRND, is different. There's no I in it on purpose, because the mindset was never about ego. It's about the mission. Started by a former Army Ranger, it's not about where you are. It's about how you show up. Different lives, different pressures, but the same mindset. Grind isn't clothing you wear just to look good. It's a reminder of why you keep going when it gets tough, and you keep putting in the work when no one's watching. This isn't just fashion, it's fuel. Because real work isn't loud. Real effort doesn't need applause. And real purpose doesn't quit. Head over to thegrindcollective.com. That's the GRND collective.com and use the promo code transition15 for 15% off your order.
When we say we don't have time, we're really saying it's not my priority. And I think a lot of people don't realize that when they say it, because if you make it your priority, you'll do it. And when your back is against the wall in your mind, you're going to do it, specifically when it comes to school. And that was just kind of where I was at. I was like, I'll join the Marine Corps to get my education. And why am I not doing my education at 12 years in? You know, and now if I don't do it, then I feel like I wouldn't be able to protect my family. And so I just said, hey, I'm going to make time for this. And that was a conversation with me and my wife, and saying, hey, during these times, I need time to work on school, at least an hour a day, and then 4 to 5 hours on Saturday and Sunday.
Isn't that our mirror of maturity, though? Every one of us at different points in our life, we just don't make certain things a priority. Think about when you were younger. You know, you don't make your health a priority or as much of a priority until you're pushing 60, and now you're like, man, maybe I should be going to the doctor more regularly. It's whatever moves up in the priority scale at that given moment is what becomes your primary focus.
Yeah, I think it's, are you educated, experienced in life enough to receive what needs to happen at that level? You know, if you're 15 and I tell you all this communications things and you're like, dude, I haven't even passed English. Or if you're a young serviceman or woman and you're brand new to what we call the fleet, and I'm telling you, hey, you need to get your education, and hey, here's these advanced communication certifications that you need, and you need to be for the aviation world, CDQAR, and all these things, that young Marine or, you know, serviceman or woman is going to say, they're going to be like, aye, whoever, and they're going to walk away and not be able to receive that. But if you fast forward 3 years later, after they've had a lot of work experience, then they're at the moment to where they can actually receive and take action on that advice.
Let's get the bigger picture of you. Take me back to growing up. Where's hometown? What drew you, or what made the young man who eventually one day ended up being a Marine?
Yeah, so my dad was in the Navy. He did a certain amount of time in the Navy. He ended up leaving our family when I was younger. So me and my dad had a back and forth relationship in and out of my life.
Were you quote unquote born into the Navy in the sense, was he active duty when you were born?
Yes. And so I have 4 brothers and sisters, and my dad had 3 wives. So he's got some experience, and I have actually, 4 brothers and sisters from just him and my mom, but ultimately like 10 of us. And I have older brothers and sisters that are 10, 12 years older than me.
Did you have a relationship with all of them growing up, or did you not even know about some of them?
No, I had a relationship growing up with my older brothers and sisters. And then after us, I was in the military when he, I was probably 16 when he left with his third wife, and then met my younger sister as a baby. And then I ended up coming back, finishing school, and he had 3 more. And I visited him again as a sergeant. So complicated relationship with my father, like most enlisted military. And, you know, I knew that I wanted to do something with my life as I was like growing up in school. Probably around the 8th grade, I was having a lot of problems. Like I wouldn't listen to my mom. I would be skipping school, and we were in trouble in the truancy courts. And
where are you living at this time? Like, where'd you primarily grow up?
Yeah, so I was in Houston, Texas, and my grandfather had bought some land up in East Texas in a small town called Timpson. If anybody's listening from Texas, they know Lufkin. So basically from Houston, you go north, you hit the first kind of semi-large town called Lufkin, Texas, and then you go up a little bit further and you hit Nacogdoches, which is the oldest town in Texas. And then about 30 minutes, there's a little flashing light, and it's called Timpson, Texas. So we were down in Houston at the time, got in a little bit of trouble. My mom we had to go to court over it. My mom told me, if you miss one more day of school, we're moving to East Texas. Like 2 days later, I missed one more day of school. And the next day we were packing the truck and driving up.
Mom didn't play.
No, she didn't. She just was like, it's time to make a change. And we moved up to a 1-bedroom, small trailer that was sitting on my grandfather's land, and transferred into Timpson, Texas, midway through my 8th grade year.
What kind of work did Mom do?
She didn't work. She was a single mom, 4 kids. We were relying on my grandfather a lot. Where we were living in Houston, we lived with my grandfather and my grandmother at the time. We moved up to the land with nothing on it and just a trailer, and went to town and to school in a small 2A high school.
And you were how old at this point?
I was, I think I was 13, 12, 13. I was in 8th grade.
And within the 4 brothers and sisters, where are you falling? Are you the oldest?
I am the oldest, yeah. And I got my younger brother, he's about 18 months younger than me. And then my younger sisters that are about 18 months apart from each other and him. So it's just kind of this, staggered.
Was it just no interest in going to school, or were you doing other stuff trouble-wise?
Well, so I think I was just angry at my father. He wasn't there, wasn't providing, nothing, right? Had left us in the 2nd grade. He came back for a little bit, and then we came back from church one day, and the Navy showed up in the white car and took him off. Now that I've had some military experience, I know my father went UA, and they came and snatched him up, but he didn't come back after that. Fast forward, I ended up trying again. I moved up to Seattle, Washington with my father.
Let's pause you right there. So what was high school like for you? Other than the fact that you weren't going to school, that was middle school. So Once you got into high school, did you kind of turn yourself around, or?
Yeah, so I think high school was a pivotal point for me because we got into high school and my mom put me into sports, and I just love sports. And
no desire to play sports prior to that?
No. When you play sports in high school, you have to have a certain grade. So now I was like, okay, I need to go to school, focus on my grades. My grades went from, not being at school to A's, mostly A's and like 1 or 2 B's. And then I was playing football and basketball, baseball, track. In East Texas, in a small town, you can do everything. It don't even matter if you're good. San Diego, different problem. You better focus on your trade.
We need to fill a
team. Right. We just need bodies in East Texas. So, yeah. Well, whether you played or not, if there was enough, that would depend on that. So, in high school, it was fairly easier for me because I was, working out, part of a team, and move forward from there.
With that change in direction, I'll call it, finding a purpose. Hey, I enjoy playing sports. A byproduct of that is I have to be prepared, keep my grades up, that type. Did it dial you in enough to where you started thinking then, okay, what's going to be for me after high school? Were you even thinking that far ahead?
No, in my younger, freshman, sophomore year, no. Then as I got into my junior year, I started thinking, what's next? Where I want to go to school. Well, in the early 2000s, you know as well as I do, we didn't have the access to internet and all that stuff. So that most people do, and it was even more restricted in East Texas. So how do you go to school? I think that's something that kids today take it. They're not aware of that advantage that they have. Because when you're growing up in East Texas, you don't really know how you're going to get into school, much less pay for the school. I mean, in high school, early high school years, I was on welfare, and we didn't have a lot of money. So how do you go to school? So I was like, all right, well, I'm pretty decent at baseball. Maybe I could get a scholarship for baseball. And
do you have any strong role models other than your grandfather from a male perspective?
Man, I never thought of that question, but the answer to that is no. It's just my grandfather.
So nobody's in your ear about being not in the sense of being a man like you're an adult, but what's going to be you as a young man? Where's your future going to take you? Almost kind of walking you down that path. Like, what do you think you want to do with yourself? Obviously, maybe a guidance counselor.
Yeah. I didn't have any of that until I got into high school with my coaches. But even then, that relationship wasn't to that level of like, hey, and this is something I tell my son all the time, is life for a young man and a man period is a lot harder than what we project when you see every day. And no one cares about your feelings as a man, in my opinion. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's my opinion. Like, if you go out and you start telling people how you feel, they're looking at you like, okay. So you have to prepare yourself.
I think society is definitely changing. It's becoming more acceptable for men to express their emotions. But at the end of the day, I still believe society says, it sucks that you're dealing with that, and we'll pat you on the back and we'll give you the hug that you need. But guess what? You still have a responsibility as a male. Right. I think that doesn't go away.
I agree with that statement. So, like going up in high school, I didn't have any of that. I had my coaches that were hard on me and held me accountable, and you felt good being a part of a team. And you just, went and worked and you did, you just got better grades and you were part of the team, So
did you actually look into possibly trying to get a scholarship to a college?
Yeah. So I, in my senior year, we'll kind of fast forward, there was some drama in my senior year. Football wise, I was
serious drama that could have derailed your ability to move into adulthood?
No, it was more of, I'll tell the quick story. So playing baseball, it's my senior year. My junior year, I was a designated hitter for the baseball team, and I was pretty good at third and second base. My arm was a little bit weak, looking back at it, but I could field the ball well. And we go out my first day of practice, and there's a couple of guys that are messing with me a little bit. My younger brother was out there. My younger brother immediately engages them, and he gets into a fight. Both of them get kicked off the team immediately. But, back then the coaches,
your brother and the one guy that were fighting?
Yeah. And then I go back to the stretching huddle, and there's like a bunch of I'm just kind of like cussing under my breath. I was kind of upset about it. And I'm stretching, and then like the guys start yelling at me, saying, oh, you're racist and all these things, and I'm like, okay, I'm not racist, and I'm getting into an argument with them. So now the tensions in the circle is going higher. Coach says, hey, Josh, go to the locker room. And I'm like, did he just kick me off the team? And I just kind of mumbled under my breath, this is bullshit. And that following week, I got called in the principal's office. And the principal and the coaches in there, the athletic director, and they go, why did you tell Coach Robinson he's full of shit? And I said, I didn't say that, and they didn't care. And where I grew up, they gave you pops. So they gave me 3 pops with a wooden paddle, which is crazy to say out loud for those listening.
What year is this?
This is 99, 2000 up in East Texas. I wouldn't doubt it still takes place in some places in East Texas. But
I just wonder, I'm thinking back at that time, like you said, they still gave you pops. How that coach just, if he thought you said, he was full of shit, how he just didn't grab you by the back of the shirt right then and there.
Yeah.
That almost seems like what I would anticipate.
Yeah, I was just, for me, I was a hardworking athlete. I was really good at football. I mean, I was an first district all-team football player. I had weightlifting records there and like all these things, and like almost a straight A student, top 10% of the class at this point. And you kicked me off the team my senior year because of this incident that really didn't have nothing to do with me. And I was pretty bitter about that for a long time. I'm still kind of frustrated about it sometimes. I worked on letting it go, but I'm like, man. But I got kicked off. And one of my plans was like, hey, I'm pretty decent at baseball. We have a chance to go deep in the playoffs this year.
Because that's going to basically be the tail end right as you're about to graduate, the baseball season, right?
Yeah, and I was hoping to get maybe a scholarship to go play college somewhere. I had sent some videos out to a college named Louisiana College in Alexandria, Louisiana for football. And the coach, and I had met with the coach. The coach had told me, you're too small for an offensive, defensive lineman, but I think that your speed and strength could be a linebacker. So he was like, I'll have you if you come play for me, but it's a Division III school.
No
scholarship, right? So now I'm like, man, okay, baseball, fast forward, you're in the baseball season, and I get kicked off the team. And that kind of devastated me a little bit because I'm like, how am I going to pay for school? Now, what I didn't say earlier is like in the November timeframe, a Marine recruiter had came up and talked to me. And he talked to me through my best friend. And so my best friend joined then. And then I'm like, I'm not joining.
I know another guy for you.
Right. And at that point, I was like, I'm not joining the military, much less the Marine Corps. But it kind of put that initial seed. And then when I got kicked off of the team, I started thinking, well, how am I going to pay for college? What am I going to do?
Just grew off in as far as the academic side the remainder of that year? Or did you stay solid with your grades?
Solid with my grades. I mean, I got some like lower level scholarships, but I'm going through the scholarship process with my daughter and application for college this year. And I'm like, man, I didn't do anything my senior year because my daughter's writing like multiple papers and applying to multiple schools. I did not do that. And it kind of goes towards like what my experience was growing up in how you focus on like knowing the path. Mm-hmm. Now you know the path. All you have to do is Google it, and if you're playing sports, all you gotta do is go on YouTube or Instagram, and you can find drills to make yourself better, for example.
But I would also imagine there's a component that probably your daughter's entire life, even if you haven't been drilling it in her head about school, she's seen you go to college. You've probably had conversations about college long before senior year of high school, which a lot of those things you didn't have growing up.
Right. And same thing with my son. He's a junior too. So we're having this conversation. They're seeing dad go to school for his bachelor's, his master's, and doing all these certifications and things. And so anyways, getting kicked off the baseball team really made me sit back and say, and I really think that was my first time as a young man to say, that life isn't fair. It doesn't matter what actually happens sometimes. It's just, you're going to have to deal with the cards that you're dealt with. And I think the recruiter had gotten replaced between the time. The first recruiter was like an infantry guy. He's like talking to me like what an infantry dude would talk to people like. And I'm like, dude, that's too much. But then the next guy, I think he was like an air wing guy, and he was a little bit more relaxed. He called me and was like, hey, you want to sit down? And I'm like, I already told the first recruiter no. But he got me into the office.
It's East Texas. I'm assuming their potential numbers are probably small. They're not going to let you go even if they got a nibble from you.
Right. Right. Well, I think like the way that the recruiting, they got a pretty large area, right? So his main area was in Nacogdoches, and then he probably had 14 small schools. I only know that because I was a recruiter.
So you graduated 99?
2000.
2000.
Yeah.
And immediately off to Seattle with your dad?
No, so I went to Seattle when I was in 7th grade.
Oh, okay.
So I messed the date up a little bit. I said 8th grade. 7th grade, I moved up with my dad for a year.
And then when you came back to Texas was when you started having problems, like kind of really, it boiled over with your pissed off at your dad for not being there, the whole 9 yards.
Yes, and that makes sense. So I kind of jacked the timeline up. 7th grade, I went up with my dad. had a bunch of issues going on with my dad and his new wife / girlfriend or whatever she was at the time. And then I came back and now I'm angry. Now I'm around other friends and I'm skipping school and doing craziness.
So the first step off out of high school, what are you doing?
Oh, I went to boot camp.
So you ultimately decided to go in.
Yeah. So we skipped past that a little bit. So like, I think April. I don't remember the exact dates, but I joined. What happened was Lucas, I think he retired as a mass sergeant, but he was a staff sergeant at the time. He came out to my house in the old tricolor camis and picked me up and took me and my mom up to Nacogdoches and sat down and did an interview. And went through the whole interview, and he showed me the Crucible. And the Crucible is like, had just started. And I'm looking at that. I'm an athlete. I'm benching over 290 pounds and squatting 500. Like, and I'm looking at that like I could do that. And he's like, okay, well, you're saying you can, but I just don't believe you. So
everybody could say they can.
Right. I'm like, I could do that easily. Like, that's not a problem. And I went home that day without a commitment, but I kind of started thinking, I was like, well, if I'm going to join the military, I might as well join the best service.
Do you think because of your issues with your dad, you would have never even considered the Navy?
Well, so that's one of the main things. So my dad used to tell me stories about him being an MP and dealing with Marines and how much he hated Marines. So,
there's a little bit of getting back at Dad signing up for the Marine Corps.
Yeah, there was. Dad, I was like, I'm gonna, I could be a part of what I think is the best branch based off of what I've seen and what history says. And then my dad hated Marines, so I'm gonna go join the Marine Corps. And a couple of days later, I went up and told him I was gonna join, and ended up going to MAPS.
Did you have to get mom to sign, or were you 18 at this point?
No, I was 17. I had to get my mom to sign, and my dad really was in and out of my life. And at that point, we didn't know where he was. So we had to do a bunch of paperwork that basically said that my mom has sole custody. And she signed. I had to convince her to sign. Because at that time, there was this thing going around about people being brainwashed in the Marine Corps. And I remember my librarian was like, my brother joined the Marine Corps, and they brainwashed him. And then he got out and his credit was all messed up. And I'm like, okay, I'll still join the Marine Corps.
Sorry about your brother.
Yeah.
Where's the book I need?
But I had actually joined for the buddy program to go to boot camp with my best friend. And
but did you get sold on the communications aspect right out of the gate?
No. That's a good question, actually. So when I joined the Marine Corps, I joined for, I think it was AF.
That great open contract.
No. No, I had I think I took the ASVAB. What's funny is I took the ASVAB my junior year. They came out to the school and conducted it in the auditorium. I took it kind of on like a book on my knee. Right. And I think I scored like a 54 or 56 or something. And I wanted to be in aviation. So fast forward my senior year, I'm like, hey, I took the ASVAB. Do I need to go take the ASVAB again? And they looked at my score and they're like, oh, you're an alpha. I'm like, can I be an aviation mechanic? And he looked at my score. He's like, yeah, you can be aviation mechanic. So fast forward, I went to boot camp. Or not boot camp. I went down to MAPS and I signed up to be aviation to leave in September of 2000. Well, I was out in June, maybe like the 7th, on that first week of June or second week. I was out doing a work job with my grandfather, and my best friend calls me up and he's like, hey, I'm going to leave boot camp early. I'm like, okay. He's like, oh, you want to come with me? I'm like, well, maybe. Anyways, he convinced me to. So the recruiter called me. He's like, all right, we're going to move you up. I didn't know at the time that when they moved you up, that there are shipping months. And if you move past those shipping months, so like they're kind of bundled together. And if you move past those periods, you lose your job. So if you go backwards, you can lose your job. Right. So like if I go from like a September shipping period and I drop back to June, you lose your job.
So in essence, you would move forward, so to speak, sooner, but you get put in a different band.
Yep, for the job.
And there's only certain slots that are available in that band.
Right. And so they moved me back, and I didn't know all that I know it.
And I'm sure they explained that completely to you.
No, they didn't. They did not explain it at all. And so they're like, okay, you lost your job, so now I need you to pick a new job. So I'm looking through the different things. And one of the things that my grandfather done is he poured concrete and built houses. So his financial security would come in waves. Like he would have good work and there would be no work because of rain or whatever. And so he would take me on the job site. So I was like, oh, well, if that's one of the reasons why I want to be aviation mechanics. I'm like, you go fix airplanes. There's planes going to be flying all the time. They're going to need mechanics. But then I started, I had lost my job. So I'm like, oh, maybe I can be something else. And so I looked into Delta Bravo. Delta Bravo has electrician, field wireman, and field radio operator. And I tell the recruiter, I'm like, oh, well, I want to be an electrician. And he was like, okay. Now he explained it like, hey, this is just kind of the job band that you're in and you can get any one of those. But I'm like, I want to be an electrician. And he was like, yeah, you can be an electrician. Because I wanted to do something with my hands. Well, I was not an electrician, and I didn't find that out until the end of boot camp, and I was highly pissed off. So you go back to boot camp, you come home, and I'm on recruiter's assistance, PTAD stuff, and I'm like, hey, and he's like, hey, and I'm like, oh man, staff sergeant, now he's, you're in the military now. Right, so it's a switch. And he said, I'm like, hey, Staff Sergeant, you said I was going to get this. He's like, yeah, but you're a radio operator. I don't know what to tell you. And I was like, okay, great. So so he told my mom when I signed up, hey, he's not going to be in the infantry. He's not going to be a radio operator. And, well, now I'm a radio operator. And I go to MCCS, or Communications Schoolhouse in 29 Palms. And I get Hawaii, which is awesome. But I got 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines, which is infantry battalion. My mom was so pissed. Oh, man. She's like, I'm going to go talk to him. And now at this point, I've been introduced to what fear in the military is. I'm like, no, Mom, it's fine. We'll just figure it out. At least I get to go to Hawaii.
You're not helping the situation, Bob. You will not be helping the situation.
You won't. It will get worse for me. Please don't talk to him. So, we went to Communication Schoolhouse, 29 Palms.
Did you and your buddy go to MCRD? Yeah,
so let's back up on that. So we were supposed to leave, I think, on the 22nd.
Let me guess, he backed out.
No, he went earlier. I was supposed to go on the 19th. Yeah, it was the 19th, and he went on the 12th. And I'm like,
was he like sitting outside just waiting for the next bus to come, jump on?
I don't know. Hey, my friend, he's a great dude. I still talk to him every once in a while, but he just changes his mind a lot. But so he went early, and then I went to boot camp later by myself.
Rhetorically speaking, boot camp pretty much a walk in the park for you physically?
Actually, no, which was surprising. I think it was challenging both mentally and physically. I tell you what, that first night in MCRD, I was like, all the disrespect that I did to my mom. I'm like, I just want to go home and be with my mom. Obviously I didn't tell anybody that, but you have some good reflection in that first week of boot camp.
How could one person yell at me so much?
Yeah, and nonstop, right? And then So, boot camp was it was not a walk in the park, and mentally and physically challenging.
I just thinking from the physical side, because you had been playing sports and stuff, that it wouldn't have been.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it would have been easy, but relatively easy.
Yeah. I mean, I adapted pretty quickly to like pull-ups, crunches, run. That wasn't hard. I did cross country as well. So like running 3 miles was, wasn't the best, but it was fine. I mean, I was running in the 20-minute range.
But you were already dialed in discipline-wise because you had squared yourself up while you were still in high school.
Right. I couldn't imagine if you just go without doing any physical training at all, like going straight into boot camp without that. I mean, looking back as like a recruiter, if you go to boot camp and you're not prepared, your body, we'll see if you make it. You might have stress fractures. You might have issues with torn ligaments. Like I had a kid tear his ligaments tears a ACL going up and down stairs in boot camp.
Damn.
get up the stairs right now, get back down right now. Yep. Twist his knee, done. But he wasn't like physically fit. And if you're not prepared for that, it can be really difficult. The thing that was challenging for me was the long hikes in the Crucible, where my feet were blistered pretty significantly, and like having to get up and walk on basically a full blister across your feet is pretty challenging. A lot more so than what people would give it credit. Oh,
so can't imagine that.
That was
especially with a full ruck and everything else.
Oh yeah, it's just like needles. So
you went to 29 Palms for communication school. When did you get out of that? When did you graduate from there?
So I went to 29 Palms, I think September of 2000 to like December of 2000.
And then how soon were you stationed in Hawaii?
January. Went home for a little bit, and like I think January 15th or something, I showed up to 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines.
So then the natural progression, 9/11, were you in Hawaii at the time?
I was. Actually, we were supposed to do a field exercise on that day. We're in the barracks, and my buddy wakes me up, and he's like, "We're going to war." He's like screaming at me like, "We're going to war." I'm like, "Oh shit, what happened?" And so we turned the TV on, and when we turned the TV on, the second plane hit the towers, and I was like, "Oh shit!" So now, of course, like all Marines are like ready, like we're going today, right? So,
had you already been working up for a deployment at that point? Did you have a deployment on the calendar?
Let's see, that was October. Yeah, we were doing workups to go to Japan, to Okinawa, but so we were doing our training, getting ready to do a training exercise. And what ended up happening is they put us all behind the battalion in formation, and we kind of just set. And then we went out to the field, and then we did some training, and then we came back, and then they started putting 50 cals and other heavy machine guns at every headquarters and the gates, which kind of got real quick when you're, I think I was 18, 19 years old, maybe 19 when the September 11 happened.
With you now being in communications, assigned to an infantry unit, and even before 9/11 happened, but just looking at what your job is going to be and the possibility of deploying behind that, what was your mindset with that?
Yeah, I mean, I just was, as a young Marine, you're like, really like a lot of young kids, I think, were ignorant to what actually is combat. So, I mean, we were just like, all right, let's go. Right. I wasn't thinking about anything. But the one thing I did think about was my mom, because my mom specifically told the recruiter, don't want him as a radio operator, don't want him in infantry. And if we go to war, definitely don't want him in either one. And now we're talking about war. And she's already pissed because I'm on. I've already got, 2 of those down out of the 3. So she wasn't happy about that. I think, so we just, after we had formation, life was kind of normal for a little bit. One thing that did happen that was a major incident in my life was I ended up getting shot in the head on October 31st, 2001. And a lot of people will say, well, what? Because Hawaii isn't really known for like guns or anything like that. And me and my buddies were out on a Halloween night and doing mischief. And we're out, and my buddies are saying, hey, let's go egging, right? And you're like 18 years, 19 years old with some kids. I'm like, what? Well, I never did any of that growing up. My mom did not play once we moved up to East Texas. So I'm like in this car with these guys, and they're like driving around doing stupid shit, throwing eggs at like trick-or-treaters. It's like so immature, right? Like terrible. Anyway, so like they run out of eggs, and then they drive to the store. We'll get to the store, and they get more eggs, and we get it back in the car, and there's this guy that like said something to my friend, and as we're driving out, they throw an egg and hit him in the face, and then they peel off. And then we're going down the Leaky Highway, and the guy driving, that's the like highway for those that haven't been in Hawaii. It's literally spelled Like, but it's leaky. Anyway, so we're going down the highway, and get cut off. Now my buddy, he's cutting this guy back and forth off, and they're playing games, and I'm telling them to stop. I mean, I legitimately am, because my mom always told me you never know what they have in the vehicle, especially growing up in Texas. There's gun. That's a very open weapons type. I mean, we had kids in the high school parking lot with rifles up in the back of their windows. Anyway, so we're driving in this red Nissan 240 SX, and it's got 2-seater in the front and the small 2-door, right? And you got, like, if you sat in the back, you're like cramped up. Well, what happened that day, and I kind of like relived this day multiple times. We were playing basketball, and I got dead legged. That's important because my friend that's 6'5", I put him in the back because I couldn't bend my leg. So my leg had to be extended all the way out. So now I'm like not able to really move, and we're going down the highway, and this guy's messing around. Well, the driver's like, give me an egg. And I'm like, Brian, you need to chill, man. Like literally. And he's like pulling up even with the vehicle. And as he pulled up even with the vehicle, he let go of the steering wheel. And when he let go of the steering wheel, I reached over to grab the steering wheel. And as I looked over, I saw a pistol come up. And I said, oh shit, he has a gun. And I ducked. And he fired 2 rounds into the vehicle. The first round went through the window and shattered the glass. Now, my friend in the back seat was kind of sitting up, so the glass hit him in the chest. And the bullet traveled across the vehicle, hit me in the head as I was ducking. So it kind of like ricocheted off me, hit the kind of plastic part, broke it, and went out the window. Second round went through the quarter panel above the tire, all the way through the seat, went through the seat, and my friend's foot was up, went through his Air Force Ones, hit his ankle, and stopped. Did not penetrate, just hit his ankle. So now we have bullet holes in our vehicle. We're like maybe 3 miles away from base. And my friend just...
How do we explain this to command?
Oh, man. Oh, man. So we're like I'm bleeding all over the place. And I mean, it was like getting hit with a baseball bat in the head. And so I grabbed my head. I'm bleeding. I checked the rest of my body. My friend's screaming in the back because he's got glass in his chest. And Bryant, the guy that was driving, he's like, let off the gas. He's like, what do we do? And I'm like, drive to base. How am I telling you guys what to do? I got shot. Like, go to base, man. It's right down the road. So I'm like, there's 50 cows on the gate right now, guys. Like, go to base. That dude is not coming in there. Those Marines will light him up, right? So we pull up to base with bullet holes in our vehicle. And we pull over to the side, and they call an ambulance. Ambulance takes me down to Queens Medical Center in Honolulu, Hawaii. Now, what was interesting about that is that we had Tripler at the time, and Tripler was the Army base. And I always say this kind of flipping, but I look back on it and I said, hey, why didn't I go to the Army Medical Center? Like, they weren't equipped to handle a gunshot wound. And I said, that's weird. Maybe they weren't equipped at that time. Right? Maybe they didn't have the right people on staff. I'm going to take it as that, right? Now that I'm mature enough to not make fun of the Army. But we go down to Queens Medical Center, and I'm there for 3 days. A police officer talks to me about what happened. And
ultimately just a surface level injury?
Yeah, so I ended up having staples in my head and what they called at the time a grade 3 concussion. So what's interesting about this story is like my time at command level in the Marine Corps, what we would have done today versus what they did back then.
When it comes to sunglasses, first responders and military members definitely don't baby them. They get dropped, thrown in a utility pocket, or tossed in gear bags. Frontline Optics was created for that reality. You get premium eye protection without paying designer brand prices for something that won't survive your lifestyle. From polarized UV 400 lenses to anti-reflective coatings and a water-repellent finish, every pair is designed to handle long days, harsh conditions, and real work. And here's where Frontline Optics separates themselves from the pack. When life happens and your glasses break, they offer a no-questions-asked replacement program, even for prescription glasses. On top of that, Frontline Optics was founded by a firefighter, and a portion of every purchase goes to support the First Responders Children's Foundation, helping families of those who gave everything. So if you're looking for sunglasses that look good, are built tough, and come from a company that actually understands the job, visit frontlineoptics.com and use the promo code TRANSITION10 to get 10% off your purchase. Frontline Optics, from a first responder for the front lines?
So, first of all, 3 days in the hospital, no one contacts my mom. I call my mom, and she just had kind of this weird feeling. She's like, "What happened to you?" Because I have this bad feeling. I was like, "I got shot in the head." And she lost it. And she said, "Nobody in the Marine Corps has called me." And we went right back down that initial, which every Marine knows that when mom's mad, they want to call the command, and you're like begging them not to. So I'm like, "Mom, I'm okay. Don't call the command." I convinced her not to call the command. And then 2 Lance Corporals pull up to come get me on a Sunday morning, 3 days later, and pick me up in the Jeep, in an open air Jeep. My head's all wrapped up, and 2 Lance Corporal picking up a Marine injured like that is crazy to me. Like as a retired sergeant major looking back, but they pick me up, take me to the barracks. Next morning, I go to formation, and I'm standing in formation with a gunshot wound to the head, right? And I look at like what it was in 2001 versus what it is today. I think we've gotten significantly better in the way that we take care of our servicemen and women. But I stand in formation, and after the formation, I was like scared to go to my sergeant because we should not have been doing what we were doing, right? So now I got to go to the sergeant and say, "Hey, sergeant, I got a headache. Like I don't feel well." So I go tell him I'm hurting, and he grabs one of the Marines and is like, "Hey, walk Celis to the medical aid station." So now we walk 3 blocks, right? Like my head is like terribly hurting. So we walk 3 blocks to medical, and medical's like, "Hey, we got to send you to Tripler." And I ended up going to Tripler for 3 weeks. And then I came back to the unit. And the first thing I did was go see the first sergeant and sign a page 11 or negative counseling for unbecoming of a Marine. And it's still in my my counseling jacket, and it says everything that I just told you about throwing eggs. And I'm like, "I didn't even throw eggs, first sergeant." And he's like, "I don't care. You were with them, and you ended up getting shot. Who's the dumbass?" I'm like, "Well, you're right." My mom used to always tell me is like, "Tell me who you hang out with, and I'll tell you who you are." And that was a hard lesson learned for me. I had to reflect on life and how one, I'm thankful to be here. 2 is how fast it can end, and how fast things could escalate, and someone can get killed or hurt pretty significantly. But I ended up going to sign my page 11, and then I went home for 45 days on convalescent leave. And here's the favorite part of this story. When I come back, 5 miles, boots and utes run on the beach.
Just you or your unit?
The whole unit. And now I'm...
Just a normal training day, or is this a punishment run?
No, it's just training day.
Okay.
And it's the whole battalion. And no one cared that I just got back off convalescent leave and got shot in the head. They're like, "You're ready, Celis, let's go." They didn't give a damn about your light duty shit for those, young Marines that listen and the older Marines. No one cared. Get your ass in formation and let's go. And I haven't been doing anything at this point. And I remember running, and I'm dying the whole way. And like almost about a half a mile before the finish, I start falling back because I'm dying. And it's the closest that I ever got to falling out of a run. But I saw them start stopping, and it gave me enough motivation to get back into the platoon and finish the run. And I tell Marines all the time, I've never fallen out on a run, even when I was shot in the head. So stop making excuses and work your ass off. Go PT, Marine. If you PT, you work out, you'll be fine. If you don't, you're not. You're gonna struggle, and because the Marine Corps requires you to be at a high physical fitness, and if you're not, you're gonna struggle. So, if you look back at that, and I'm thankful that I'm alive. And
any ramifications in the civilian side off base with the guy that you guys got into it with, and court or anything like that?
No, I don't think they ever found the guy. No other police officer contacted me again. And I was like, okay. I remember giving a description of the vehicle, which was like a 1988 GMC white work pick truck with a frame that carries stuff on the back. Like you don't forget those type of moments in your life. It's very seared into my mind. But I look back at that, and it's something that I tell everybody, whether it's my kids or my Marines, is like your choices put you in those situations. Whether that guy got found or not, if I hadn't been doing what I was doing with my friends, I wouldn't have got shot. So let's just move forward from that.
When was your first deployment?
Depends on what you call a deployment, right? Like some people will say deployment to Japan. We did 2 deployments to Japan for 6-month pumps. They were pretty much, or 7 months, 6-7 months. They were pretty much kind of back to back because of what happened with 9/11. So we had already went on one, and then when we came back, the 9/11 thing happened, and they shrunk the. Normally we'd stay home for 14 months. They shrunk it. We ended up going back 7 months later, and sent another battalion to Iraq. My first deployment to Iraq was in 2005 with MWSS 271. It was my second duty station. Now I'm a sergeant in the Marine Corps. We go to Iraq.
When we started talking, you talked about how your first enlistment, you were planning one enlistment and get out.
Yeah.
That obviously you were into your second enlistment for that deployment. Mm-hmm. When it came time to decide to stay in for another enlistment, what was the factor that kept you in?
That's a great question. So my first unit, after all the drama that happened with the gunshot and all that stuff, like one of the sergeants named Sergeant Reynoso, he ended up retiring as a sergeant major. He really kind of like took me under his wing because of how hard I worked, because the incident was separate from who I was. I ended up becoming the embarkation NCO and the commanding officer's radio operator and driver. So as I got up to the end of having to make a decision, Sergeant Reynoso was he was getting ready to leave, and we were doing his going away party out in like a little barbecue area and picnic area there on Kaneohe Bay and on base. And he came up and he's like, "Hey, Celis, what are you going to do? Are you getting out? Are you staying in?" I was like, "I don't know. I kind of want to get out." And he said, "Out of all the Marines that I've worked with in the small amount of time I've been in the Marine Corps, you should stay in the Marine Corps. You'll go on and do great things for Marines." And that statement is the reason why I chose to do another enlistment. And, I don't even know if he knows that, but that was the pivotal point and the reason why I stayed in the Marine Corps for that second term.
Getting into that first deployment to the desert, first deployment to the desert, how was that experience for you in combat and seeing it from that side of the fence?
Yeah, I mean, it was very eye-opening for me because, this is 2005. We didn't have really up-armored vehicles. We had soft-top Humvees when I got there with L-frame, like, I don't know, 1/4-inch thick, 3/4-inch thick steel doors, and we had sandbags on the bottom of our vehicles. I remember we landed, and I forget where it was, but right as we were going to our camp, we had to get ammunition. And I remember them handing us ammunition out of like plastic zippy bags. And we're like counting our ammo and putting it together. And it's like,
bring back whatever you don't use.
Right. So, we're getting through our ammo and counting. And I'm like, man, this is real. I was assigned to the immediate response team with EOD. And what that was is that anytime there was an IED, we were going to that IED for the EOD to disarm it. And that, we were riding around, and maybe the week before, the unit that we were, so when we go over in country, and you're doing a turnover, you ride left seat, right seat. So you spend like a week or 2 weeks doing the routes and getting familiar with the other team, and then the team leaves and outs you. 2 weeks before that, I think they had lost a Marine to an IED, like right before going home, which is like devastating. So being a part of the immediate response team, we were going out to danger every time we were out. We're going out to IEDs, and they were doing secondary IEDs and other daisy chain IEDs, and we had 2 different teams that were assigned to it. I got to do this cool mission, which I think is cool because I'm radio operator. I'm talking to the Cobras. We're taking out 9,000 pounds of fuel out to refuel a helicopter that ran out of gas and had to land. which was a pretty cool mission. That was one of my my favorite missions. Yeah, but
that has to be something that's pretty hairy when you think about, like, shit, we got to put this bird down and we've got nobody else around us. And now we got to sit here
and wait
for AAA, so to speak, to bring us some fuel.
Right.
In a combat zone.
Right. That's like terrible. Like, I look at that, like, why didn't you go back? But, it was a very kinetic at that time. So, the helicopter pilot was probably trying to stay on station to provide support, and ended up not having enough fuel to make it back. That trip, we went out at like 4:00 in the afternoon, and it took us several hours to get out to the site, refuel the helicopter, and then took us several hours to get back. We made it back as the sun was rising. And that's a moment that I won't forget, seeing the sun come up, and like, we just helped the helicopter pilot get out of danger, and now we're on our way back. And the platoon sergeant is talking on the radio about going to the chow hall because we need to get food and before they close. Because if they close, you're screwed. Like, you're just stuck with what you have,
How long was that deployment?
That deployment was 9 months, I think, or 7 or 9 months. We left in February, got back in September of 2005, so about 9 months. Shortly after that, one of the things that kind of like stuck with me is we were having the insurgents were out blowing up the water line to the base, so we had to go out there. So now you got the immediate response team that's going out to the IED spot. They found one IED, and they already had one area that was blown up, and so they had to blow the IED in place, and they had to replace this like 13, 14-inch pipe of water that feeds the base. We go out there. Now, if you go back and you talk about, one of the things the Marine Corps tells you is the 7 Ps, and they are proper prior planning prevents piss poor performance. So I went to the chow hall the day before, not knowing we had a mission coming, and I had drank a soda. Didn't think anything of it, but it's hot in Iraq, like really hot. Like the day of the mission, it was 134 on the ground. So we took a cooler of water out. It was so hot while we were out on the mission that the water in the cooler, from just opening the ice in the cooler, just opening it, it melted. And it became lukewarm throughout the day. And I ended up getting a headache. Really, I know what it was. It was dehydration. I shouldn't have had that Coke before I went, the day before. And things happen at the worst times. Like, I'm getting this migraine headache, and we're in a perimeter waiting. And then we get a call over the radio that 200 insurgents are moving towards our position. So now I'm like, damn, I got a headache. I'm not even going to be ready. My buddy.
Time out.
Yeah, like, hey, like, can we just pause this a couple more hours? So I'm drinking water all day. And my buddy ended up, we ended up staying the night there. And I slept in this concrete, like, I don't know what they're called, like the water runoffs, right? Like concrete ditch. My friend, I was supposed to share the shift with him, but he let me sleep all night. So I woke up, I didn't have a headache. And the insurgents, they didn't show up. But we were already primed that somebody was coming. And that's important because now we fixed the water line. They've done everything. We're staging to leave. And so we're probably like 2 or 3 vehicles back. And then we have the 18-wheeler that had brought the big, stuff to dig out, tractors and all that stuff. And so I got in my vehicle, and we're starting to roll forwards in the vehicle, and I'm shutting the door. And as I shut the door, bam, IED just blew up. Dirt's falling everywhere.
Your vehicle struck it, or was struck by somebody else?
So I didn't know at that moment. Now, the vehicle right behind me, the 18-wheeler, hit one of it, and it blew up, and it actually knocked a Marine down. Thank God he didn't get seriously hurt. I got it. Ears are ringing. It's probably a light concussion as shutting the door, because I was right next to the vehicle. So dust is falling everywhere.
Pull that mic a little closer.
Dust is falling everywhere, and like lieutenant comes running up, opens the door. He's like, we're getting mortared. We didn't know it was an IED at the moment, but now you got to think, like, we're primed that 200 insurgents are moving towards our position, and now we're expecting, now we just got hit with something, right? It's chaos of war, fog of war, right? Like,
well, when you think about the logistics of battle, though, if they're constantly hitting your water supply line, they know that if they hit it, a team is going to come out, one, to repair it, and then there's going to be a prolonged staging of Marines.
Right.
So, hey, let's lock them into a specific location for a little bit. for the secondary attack.
Yeah, and when he came out screaming that we're getting mortared, I mean, anybody that knows that shoots artillery or mortars is if they hit you on the first one, they're gonna send the full battery, right? They're gonna fire for effect.
They ain't walking those in if they've already hit the first one.
Yeah, they're gonna get you, right? So, it got really intense, and I'm the one on the radio. My ears are ringing. I got a headache again, and I'm having to talk to the team and provide what the lieutenant's telling me. We get through that moment. We find out it's an IED. And now we got to wait for help because now the truck's disabled. So we're there for another 12 hours. But we ended up making it out safe. We didn't see any...
no significant casualties from that other than you said the one Marine that got knocked down?
Right. Just probably some concussion type stuff. He ended up I think his eardrum got blown out. But other than that, we didn't have any other casualties.
Now, at 5 years in for that first combat deployment, how was that conversation with Mom? Or is she basically at this point, 5 years in, she's like, "You're a Marine, go deploy."
Yeah. Every time leaving my mom, it was always difficult. My mom has a tremendous love for me, and I'm her first son. I'm my grandfather's first grandson. So, she's very religious and prays for me and continues to pray for me even to this day. So, she was very stressed out every time I left.
How many total combat deployments?
2. The next combat deployment was in Afghanistan, and that's a whole different conversation because that's hey, I'm a staff sergeant. I'm going to Afghanistan. The stuff that I described earlier in the podcast is the after that deployment. This deployment, I had just got off recruiting duty, and 2 young kids. I had a toddler and an infant.
Did recruiting duty start your third enlistment, or did you start that while you were in the end of that second enlistment?
No, I think it started my third enlistment. I got promoted to staff sergeant out on recruiting duty. Yeah.
But again, that transition question of choosing to stay in after the end of the second enlistment, what kept the motivation going?
My babies. I had young kids, and I'm like, at this point, I just got back from deployment, and coming back from deployment changed me, and I didn't really realize that. But my wife did. And she's like, you're angrier, you're shorter tempered, you got all these things going on. But I stayed because I'm like, I didn't plan to get out. Right. And this goes back to the 7 Ps. Like, you're like, oh, I'm just going to go live day to day. And in the Marine Corps is high stress. So you're focused on the daily issues. And a lot of Marines don't think about what's happening 5 years, 10 years from now, and how am I executing that? So then when it comes time for enlistment, you could spend your whole enlistment talking shit about getting out of the military. And that's for all those young Marines out there. But I've seen Marines change their mind in the last 2 weeks because they don't have a plan, and they haven't done anything to prepare.
Or they dangle that signing bonus carrot.
Right.
Or, and at the end of the day, from the Marine Corps, from a business side of the house, it doesn't really benefit them to take time to talk to all their Marines as an organization about their transition out. They have a job to do today. This is what we have to focus on. We have to focus on this mission today. Yeah, when you get close to your exit, there's, TAS or TAPS or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But right now, focus on getting this job done today.
Right. And I think really from sitting at the command level, I think we do that pretty poorly. I think that we need to have that conversation so that Marines are better prepared. And either they're prepared to get out or they got their education and they're a better warfighter today and a better leader today with their Marines. So that transition is each time was stressful for me, but I had kids and I didn't do any planning. It wasn't until after the Afghanistan deployment that I started thinking about that.
Did you come back to Hawaii from Iraq?
Yes.
And did you do...
Oh, sorry. No, I was in Camp Lejeune at this time at MWSS 271.
How was it going to the East Coast for you?
Shocking. You go from Honolulu to the sticks. I grew up in the sticks, but now I'm in Cherry Point, North Carolina, and it's 45 minutes to Lejeune, and it's just kind of country, Not much to do out there.
Where'd you do recruiting duty?
Houston, Texas.
Oh, got to go back home.
Yeah. Yeah, I lucked out on that. That was I was told I was going one day, and the sergeant major told me I wasn't. And then the next day I had orders to Houston, Texas.
And how long was that duty assignment?
3 years.
Did you like it?
Yes and no. I call recruiting duty the yin yang of the Marine Corps.
Because it's either recruiting duty or the drill field, correct?
No. So you can go recruiting duty, drill field, or you can do MSG. That's typically our B billets. There's some other kind of billets that you can do, but I don't know them all off the top of my head. But the main ones are that. And then Marine combat training, I think, is also now a billet. It wasn't when I went.
Does that then end your third enlistment coming out or while you were in recruiting?
Yes, so I re-enlisted to come and ended up getting stationed in Camp Lejeune for 8th Com Battalion after that. So I re-enlisted, got promoted to staff sergeant, and went to 8th Com Battalion.
From your family's perspective, you continuing to stay in, did you get support? Was it a bit stressful? Obviously, there's a stress point for your family, but what I'm getting at is, do you get the, hey, if this is what you want to do, we'll back your play kind of deal, or?
Yeah, so my wife has always been supportive in that aspect. My kids were really young at that point still. But she's always, supported me, and it's just like, hey, whatever is going to make you happy, and we're going to continue to move forward. So she's always been very supportive.
How'd you like deploying in a leadership position?
So in Afghanistan, that's what you're talking about? Yeah, so Afghanistan, I went as a staff sergeant, and in this particular deployment, I was a part of the embedded training team. So we were assigned to the 215th Brigade for the Afghan Army. And at that position, I was holding a communication officer position, mentoring their major on their communication side. So now we're on a smaller team. So our workups were a little bit different. And my workups was short because we went to 8th Com Battalion, and I forget how long I was there, maybe 2 or 3 months. And the gunny got tapped to go to Afghanistan, and the gunny wasn't ready to go. So they're like, well, who else do you have? And they're like, well, I got this motivator named Staff Sergeant Celis. He's ready to go. And the master guns called me in his office and said, hey, do you think you can do this job? I know you just got off recruiting duty. And I'm like, yeah, I can do this. This is not basic radio communications, is not hard for me. I had to do it. Like it's kind of ingrained in me. I can do it. So he's like, all right, well, you're going to leave in 2 months. And now I'm like, oh shit, I got to tell my wife that I'm leaving in 2 months. I just got here from recruiting duty. We're brand new to the area. So I'm driving home, and I call her. I'm like, hey, I'm going to Afghanistan in a little bit. So I just wanted to give you a heads up. And she's like, what? I was like, I'll talk to you more when we get home. Get home, we talk about it. And I'm like, gotta go.
Hey, give her the call while you're driving. Let her blow her top off for a little bit and cool down a little bit.
I got home, and I'm like, all right, let's talk about it. Because I wanted to deploy. It's one of the reasons why I came back to the fleet. I'm like, I want to go. I wanted to go to both Iraq and Afghanistan. And I wanted to be a recruiter and a drill instructor. That's kind of like what I started to, in my mind, I wanted to do. Recruiting duty, and then do drill instructor. Iraq and Afghanistan. To me, that was my goal. But we move forward. Now I'm telling my wife I'm going to Afghanistan. And going on a deployment without family versus going on deployment with young children and a wife is totally different. You fast forward a little bit, we're getting on the bus, and I remember telling my wife bye next to the bus. She's holding my son, and she's got my daughter by the hand, and I get on the bus and I just start crying because I didn't know if I was coming home. We're going on an 11-month deployment is what we were signed up for. And that really played a lot of mind games with me going out, and now I'm gonna have to lead in an environment, and I'm crying going on the bus. And Marines like to talk shit when they see you crying. One of them said something, and I cussed them out on the bus, and I was like, "You just need to give me a moment. I don't know if I'm gonna see my kids." And that was a big deal for me because of my dad leaving me. I didn't want my son to grow up without a father or my daughter, right? So, fast forward, we deploy. And I found out real quick that the Afghanis are war fighters. They are not the Iraqis. The Iraqis put their hands up and walk away. The Afghanistan people will fight you. And that is, looking back on it, and a lot of people don't know, Afghanistan's been in war for 5,000 years. And most people go over there and get tired and leave, which turns into defeat. We recently did that, right?
They got a huge home field advantage, and they take full advantage of it.
Right. And a lot of people don't understand, like, you go out to these smaller areas of operation and you're having to go down barely drivable roads in big vehicles that are, meant to go through that type of stuff. But it is still challenging in many areas out there. And they're going to fight you tooth and nail. So you better be ready. And I didn't realize that until we go into Afghanistan, you go to Camp Leatherneck staging area. In our team, we had the Afghan Army partners and the police partners. So we had a group of MP Marines with us. And the MP Marines were all young. And at this moment, I had already been shot in the head and hit very close to an IED. So I already knew hey, I'm going to war as a young sergeant versus going to war as a staff sergeant, and had all of these experiences. You can die pretty quickly. And the young men were laughing and joking. And I'm like, you guys need to take this serious. This is not Call of Duty. And
now, were the MPs assigned because it was a training element that all of you were going to be doing some aspect of training? And that's why you had MPs assigned with you?
Yeah, so we were partners. And so the whole task was we train together. We're underneath one lieutenant colonel. You go and you have the police mission and we have the Army mission. So fast forward, we get out to our camp at Delaram, and maybe 3 weeks into it, the guys get called out to an IED with the police, and one of the corporals, Joshua Dumas, stepped on an IED and blew his right leg off and bled out in 6 minutes. And I was back at camp, and they called all of the staff NCOs together about 2,300 at night and told us that he passed away. And Josh was like 6'5", like happy Marine, like had a baby on the way, and the deployment got real very fast for that unit, for the police, for our unit.
How soon into the deployment does this happen?
Like 3 weeks in. And, it's, they talked to the staff and said, hey, we're going to do a ramp ceremony. So now we had to carry Josh up, do the whole ceremonial thing. And that was very, very, very difficult. And it was very emotional to lose the Marine, period. And then think about, I have a young child. He has a baby that hasn't met him. And we still got 10 and a half more months to go.
So you knew it was an 11-month deployment, not a thing of, hey, it's going to be 7 or 8, and you got extended.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be. They said a year, but it ended up being 11 months. So, it was, now we got a long way to go. And we had R&R, which was something that I wasn't familiar with. And they started talking about it in the very beginning. I'm like, what? We get to go home for a little bit? A lot of people would say, oh, that's great. No, I think R&R is the worst. So I avoided it the first 9 months. I was like, I'll just let everybody else go. I'll take mine at the end. I took mine at the end, went home, and then had to come back and leave my kids again. And then I was like, I got to do something with my life. I got to move forward. I have got to start thinking about what's after the Marine Corps. Up into that deployment, I was interested in like special forces, and I was like, oh man, maybe I can do the special forces communications. But then after going away from my family like that in that environment, I was like, I'm not doing that. I don't want to leave my kids.
It's weird to think about. This is just an outsider's perspective, but you look back at the old military. R&R was, for the most part, in the backyard of where combat was. When you're in Vietnam, R&R was close by. When you were in Europe, R&R was close by. You didn't go home. You went with other guys that you knew, and you never left the environment per se. So it probably, in a weird way, was easier to then to go, okay, I got 3 or 4 days off. Now it's back to back to combat.
Yeah, and they gave us 2 weeks, and you're home.
You're like, I don't want to get back on that
Right.
plane to go back.
Right. It's very difficult. Like, it takes a lot of mental fortitude to say, all right, no, my Marines are back there. I got to go back. I leave my family again. And I don't know if I'm coming back again, because I've been in deployments where people died 2 weeks, before coming home. And like, as we started, and I took those lessons from that and reminded the Marines about discipline and the small things as we would go out and do these different missions, is like, you need to be focused every time. You should not be thinking about home. Discipline today, right now, because if you let it slip for one moment, you might die. And that's serious. And unfortunately, that kind of rings home more because we lost the Marine early in the deployment. So fortunately, we didn't lose any other Marines in that deployment. I learned a lot about the Afghan culture and what the Army was doing. A lot of people don't know this, and I think it's kind of similar to where we are structured in the United States. You got the police force that's from the local area and the military that comes from all over, and it's the same thing. And some of the corruption that comes from the military, the police force, is because they're local and the Taliban influenced them and threatened them and all those things. And so, but the Army is harder to get to because they're from all over the country. We made it out of Afghanistan, and it kind of ties me to like my buddy Kevin Baldoff. Kevin Baldoff, Bronze Star recipient, Lance Corporal in an infantry battalion. Now I'm leaving, he's coming back, and I see him in the smoke pit. And I'm like, hey, let's talk, because you're coming out to this. This is not Iraq, brother. Like, you need to have guardian angels up. Guardian angels are the guys that hold a loaded weapon while you're eating, so that they can react to any threat. We have a very long conversation. He's got 2 young daughters and his wife Amy, and like, we have this conversation in the smoke pit, and it still bothers me to this day, because fast forward, I go home and I get a phone call. Now, in the middle of the night, somebody's calling you and they say, hey, Kevin just got killed in Afghanistan. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense, man. And the reason is because they get locked down. How do you even know that? Right? Because we go into River City if someone passes away, so it gives the opportunity to. I'm like, that's for number one, stop. How many people have you called? Number 2, stop calling people. And if you call anybody, call them back and tell them not to tell anybody. We need to run this up through the command. So I'm sitting there on my couch watching the football game, just kind of in shock. Like, is that real? Is this real information? Then we come the next work the next day, and it was real. And what happened in that situation, which I believe was on the news, 4 Marines were killed by a insider. An Afghan police officer opened fire, killed a lieutenant colonel, shot Kevin in his neck, and killed 2 others. That haunts me still to this day, because I had the conversation with Kevin, and made me really angry. I go visit his grave in Washington pretty regularly, and I'm actually getting ready to go out to Washington here at the end of this week for my wife. But while I'm there, I'm going to go over to the site, and so it's just it's hard to deal with the loss of Marines, and so. That just let me know, like, Afghanistan is not Iraq. People used to joke about Iraq, but Afghanistan is no joke.
Well, I think that just the bigger component of working with partner forces and talking to other men who've deployed and been in combat situations, where human nature, man, we work with this team 5, 6, 7 times, whatever it is. And pretty soon, security gets a little lax. And then all of a sudden, you're letting them inside the wire or inside the base, where normally, hey, we meet you outside. Just those little things.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity to talk to Nick Lavery and how he lost his leg in an inside the wire attack, coordinated inside and outside. And from the line level guy, they start seeing, like, wait a minute, something's wrong with this situation. But command is trying to, we got to balance. We got that balancing act. We don't want to piss our partner forces off, and it doesn't end well.
Right. And oftentimes you see those problems, and you're trying to speak up. And I see that in the regular world too. It's like people want to do the easiest route. Sometimes they don't want to ask or hear the answer to the hard questions. So we lost him, and that still hangs with me for a long period of time. And so come back from Afghanistan, have the kind of financial things that are going on. Then I start going to school. And I think that's really when I started my transition preparation.
Did you put in for the drill field?
I did, but the recruiter, I did that probably right before, I want to say right before Afghanistan. They told me no, you haven't deployed enough. And I'm like, okay, I'll go and deploy a bit and I'll come back. When I came back, I was in a different headspace, and I just didn't entertain it. But what's funny is my friend, good buddy of mine, he got histed as a gunnery sergeant for a drill instructor. And he got to do both. I'm kind of jealous, but I used to make fun of him for getting histed. But anyways.
So you ended up doing, we talked about 23 in a month, right?
9 months.
4 months. Your wife says you did 30 years.
Yeah. You know, it's very important because Marines are always saying they did more than what they did. And she's like, you need to say you did 24. No, I did 23 years, 9 months.
But that decision to get out and not do 30, what was the biggest motivating factor?
Well, there's kind of two things there. The first thing is that I had some kidney issues happen as a first sergeant. And I kind of recovered from that. And then I tore my shoulder up as a sergeant major, and I had to have surgery. And then I get that shoulder fixed, start working, moving again, tear my other shoulder up. It just becomes, can my body physically still do what the Marine Corps asked from me as a sergeant major? And one of the things that I've always prided myself with is like, if my young Marines are doing it, then I need to be able to do it, period. Like combat fitness test, I'm running with my unit. Physical PFTs, physical fitness tests, I'm running with the Marines. I'm not running a separate one for me. We're not doing separate things for the older group. Like I'm going out there with the Marines. And so I was very prideful in like, hey, I need to execute in front of my Marines. And when I started having those injuries and the internal issues, I ended up in the hospital a few times trying to come back because of the kidney problems, trying to pick up the pace on PT. Was very significant in my ultimate decision. The other thing that I made a decision that looking back on, I kind of go back and forth on. I made this decision, and a lot of senior people will tell you, they start thinking about, okay, where's my value out in the real world when I start working? How much money can I make now? What can I bring in to be able to continue to set my family up for the future? And so I had, at this point, I already had my MBA. And I got a certification in project management. I did some certifications in Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. So my resume, in my mind, I have enough to go out and demand a higher level pay band and be in a higher position getting out. So now I'm like, well, okay, I think now is the time for me to move. The thing that I did not consider is if I stayed an additional 6 years, how much more I would receive in military retirement at 75% versus what I am today. And then looking at what a 401k would do 20 years from now in a new position, doing matching, it's actually less. And I'm blessed to have a good position. So I'm able to put more into my 401k. But when you look at that over a 20-year life cycle, I could have worked 6 more years and had the same equivalent as 20 more years for the future. Now, for the present day decision of getting out, going and increasing your income and having a second income and things like that, that's different for today. There's a lot of variables that you have to consider. For me, it's like if you're transitioning out, you really need to take the consideration from what does 65 look like and go backwards.
Did you EAS out of Lejeune?
No. So I retired out of Miramar. From my favorite unit, which I know all of the Marines out there, everybody says their favorite unit is X, but when they're in the unit, but my favorite unit by far is VMGR 352, which is known as the Raiders, or Marine Aerial Refueler Transport Squadron 352.
How did that transition happen from and bring you back to California?
So I was in Okinawa, Japan. I was first sergeant in they go back and forth with the name. I think it's called Headquarters Regiment now. It was Combat Logistics Regiment 37. They go back and forth. for reasons I don't know. So I get selected to sergeant major, and my sergeant major calls me in the office, and he's like, hey, congratulations, I got you orders. And normally that's kind of weird, right? Like, because normally the monitor hits you up and you like get a couple of choices and, you know, you give it to them and then there's some back and forth. But he called the monitor and was like, this is where he needs to go. And so he's like, you need to go to the air wing to get that experience. And it'll help you out down the road. So this is where you're going and you're welcome. He grew up in the helicopter side, and he's like, he just knew 352 was a nice position to be in. And so we came in the middle of the end of COVID. So 2020, December of 2020 is when we moved here to San Diego, and I took over in January as a sergeant major of 352.
And then when did you actually retire?
August 2023. My actual retirement date is January. So I was lucky. You know, throughout my career, I've been blessed with key leaders and to be in my life at the right time. One of those leaders is Master Gunnery Sergeant Billy Shaver, changed the whole trajectory of my career as a young sergeant. And then fast forward, Courtney O'Brien was my CO at the time. And Courtney is a phenomenal leader. More so, you know, sometimes there's ego involved with commanders. Sometimes there's ego involved with senior enlisted. Courtney just wanted to make sure that you're taken care of. And she saw some of the physical things that I was challenging with. And I told her I was interested in doing a skill bridge. That's a hot topic in transition, especially in the senior levels. And she supported me and said, you know, you need to take care of yourself. You've given 23 years to this organization. Do the things that you need to do. We will be okay. And when you have a leader that understands that you have to give grace and you have to give space to those individuals that are getting ready to transition, it's invaluable. I'm really thankful for her for that, to get that time, because there's some leaders in the military that think that senior enlisted don't need skill bridge. And this has kind of been on my heart as I was driving up here. You know, the people that I think needs transition the most and space the most is the senior leaders. They've given the most to the country. They've given most to the organization. Not saying that a 4-year veteran should not get that transition space. I just think that it shouldn't be, hey, we're going to give the 4-year guy way more time than the senior guy because the senior guy has more experience, and all these excuses from the senior leaders in the military that, to be very frank, have not transitioned. So if you haven't transitioned, how do you tell others about transition? And I was the same way. Like, I'm advising Marines only based off of my experience on recruiting duty and dealing with people coming back and giving me feedback to help me guide my Marines. But if you haven't got out of the military or you haven't got out in any branch, you cannot assume that senior leader is equipped to do what they need to do to be able to get out of the mindset and move into a different chapter of their life. And that 6 months really gave me grace from being able to go experience working in a way different biotech type environment, to be able to still have time to understand kind of how you apply to jobs and you do those different things to be able to land a role. And it really gave me the time. And if it wasn't for her, I would have been struggling financially due to the fact of having to get out and pay for California. And a part of that, though, is a lot of things going on with my family, which I was moving to Texas. I changed my mind, stayed in San Diego for my kids to finish high school. So there was a lot of variables that you had to balance.
Before we go deeper into your preparation and getting out, something you just said, though, that I think is really important. It almost seems like when we first started talking, where there needs to be a component of the training as you progress through your career. You're right. Somebody who's done a career in service probably needs a little different guidance towards, all right, now you're going to be retiring, so to speak. The 4-year enlistment person, maybe they don't need as extensive. So it almost kind of seems like, from my perspective, you do your first 4, as you're getting out and you've decided, hey, I'm leaving. We've got a block of training for you to help you prepare. Because one of the things that I've talked to a lot of men and women doing this podcast, especially for that young Marine, that young sailor who only does 4 years or so, many of them joined not really knowing what they wanted to do with their life. All right, the military gives me an option. They did their 4, didn't work for them. It wasn't for me, but they really don't know what they want to do afterwards. So you can stick them in a TAPS class or a TAS class, but if they don't know where they want to get to, a lot of the information is in one ear and out the other because they're just checking the box. The other side of it, though, you commit to a second enlistment. All right, we're going to open up this block of training to give you a wider aperture to be looking at. All right, you commit to a third enlistment. All right, hey, I'm committing to a career. And I think that as you progress, the training needs to, I would imagine, progress is the way I see it.
I agree with that. I think like there's a lot going on with that transition space, and I'm more passionate about it now than when I was in. And I used to be passionate about it when I was in with the Marines. But, you know, I wonder the decision space from the more senior leaders, if there's information that I don't see and they're looking at it from a larger macro scale, as how many Marines are getting out, how many Marines are struggling to get jobs based on each different level of people, and then how much resources is available. Because as you get older, hopefully you've prepared and you have a better mindset and resources. But I do think it needs to be tailored, right? Like one of the ideas that I had is like, if it's your skill bridge and you do 4 years, if you want that extra time to transition, then that should be a part of your contract. So you do your 4 years of all of your training, all of your requirements, and then you have a 4.5 year contract and you do 6 more months. And that 6 months is your transition space. We're paying for it anyways. So why not add it to the contract and you get your time?
But a great component that you brought up, that you talked about, as you were coming to your retirement, you were on the fence. Am I going back to Texas or am I going to stay here in San Diego?
Yep.
That's a huge factor because you got some young man, young woman, whether they're at 4 years or at 20 years, if they EAS out of Lejeune, but they want to go back home to Montana, the government only has certain resources to be able to set you up. If what you want to do isn't available in Montana, there's nothing that the military can help you prepare for.
Right.
You know,
right. The other thing that they don't think about is taxes and how much benefits you get from being in the military. I'll give you an example. BAH, Basic Allowance for Housing. That's a tax-free subsidy from the government. So your income, and you know this as well, but for those that are transitioning, it's like if your income is $100,000 today in the military, when you get out, you're going to have to wait more than that. Maybe 130 because the taxes are going to come out and then you're back down to that. So then we get into the education versus the non-education. And that's the difference. And a lot of people getting jobs is the difference from being a hiring manager where I can't even get you an interview because you don't meet the requirements of a bachelor's degree, for example. So, you know, when you go back to where I say my transition started as a staff sergeant, I'm lucky that I had some, you know, I messed up. Because typically what happens is like, and I say this all the time, like if you're getting promoted, you're getting promoted, you're getting promoted, you're getting promoted, everything's great. There's no reflection. I didn't trip up. I didn't stumble. So why reflect? So you're kind of on this like steady slope. But if you falter a little bit and you learn from that, your slope and trajectory can change. And that's that right there, that moment allowed me to be really prepared 12 years later. So, you know, that's why I think like to the progression thing is like, hey, you should have some type of class where we're talking to real, like people come back and tell military service members or whoever they are, they come back and they talk to those younger people about their experiences so that they can get, hey, I need to maybe think about where I'm going to be. You don't have to make it, you don't have to say, hey, I'm going to do this. You can say option A, option B, or option A, B, C. But if you don't prepare, it's going to make the transition significantly more difficult. Like I would have had to go back to Texas if I didn't have a degree. Like would have. And you look at the taxes and how much all of those, the cost of living in San Diego is because my kids want to stay at that high school and finish. I made it happen, but I wasn't able to make it happen overnight. It's really the culmination of 12 years of preparation that allowed me to pivot. And even pivoting was difficult.
Was there somebody, I'll go back to the mentor question. You mentioned you got your MBA. Was that self-driven, or was somebody kind of in your ear and guiding you towards what you could do after the Marine Corps? Or was it purely on your own, like, this is what I want to get to and an MBA is going to help?
Yeah, no, I college and master's all comes from my friend I was telling you about early.
Do you look forward to that first cup of coffee of your morning? Then Blue Line Roasting is the choice for you. They're a Tennessee-based, law enforcement-owned company, roasting small batches of premium coffee, fresh, within 48 hours of your ordering. And they ship it fast so it doesn't sit around getting stale. From Patriot, their light roast, to Failure Drill, their dark roast. Whole bean or ground, they've got you covered. But Blue Line Roasting is more than just good coffee. A portion of every purchase goes to support law enforcement families who are dealing with line-of-duty injury or loss. So your morning routine becomes something bigger. Grab a single bag, try a sampler pack, or get a subscription set up so you're never caught without it. Also, shipping is always free. And for the listeners of this podcast, use the promo code TRANSITION10 to get 10% off your order. Head over to bluelineroasting.com and make your morning count.
He actually ended up getting kicked out of the military, and watching him struggle and not have a degree, and then work his way up in an organization, get a degree, work his way up, get a master's, end up being a vice president of an organization. He's the one that was like, when I was struggling, he's like, you need to go to school. Go to school now. I'm like, what? I had all these excuses. He convinces me to go to school. I finished my bachelor's, and he's like, all right, I'm done with my master's now. So what are you doing? And I went to Miami. He's like, the MBA will change your perspective on things. And it from a MBA to me helped me with strategy, looking at things from a strategic vantage. And that's what he told me would happen. And I just look at problem sets differently now that I'm on the outside and I have an MBA. And I had the MBA when I was a SAR major, and it frustrated me because of the way that the military does things. But I got a chance to learn there, and it was, I was able to use it.
Talk about a vapor lock. Teach a Marine how a business should operate efficiently.
Yeah. You know what's funny? And I'll tell this. I think a lot of people in transitioning need to hear this. When I was in the Marine Corps, we used to joke because we always have, the lesser equipment, the older equipment, all that stuff, right? And I used to joke when some of the problems would come up, and I would say, man, the Marine Corps is like an old beat up Army Jeep. Like it works. There's a bunch of things that can be changed out. We fix it, but we never like upgrade it. It just keeps kind of traveling down the road. But I've been in 3 organizations now since I got out of the Marine Corps. And I'll tell you, the Marine Corps is a Ferrari. I mean, and it starts with one word: accountability. Accountability in the Marine Corps and in the military is significantly higher than any other organization that I've been in since. And I've been in 3 different organizations since. That's the difference. Because you know that I will come to your door physically and literally and bring you out of the house to finish something that has to be done that you walked away from. But in the regular world, it doesn't work like that. And for those that are transitioning, that is a source of frustration, because in our minds, we owned everything. And in the regular world, they own one little piece of the puzzle. And that's what they focus on. And if you step out, they actually fight you over it, which is crazy to me. But
well, do you think it also goes back to the original purpose? Marine Corps' purpose is combat and combat efficiency and getting the mission accomplished in a life or death matter. Few businesses have that mentality.
Yeah.
They have a purpose and a mission, but it's nothing like any branch of the service. There's a different aspect of what you're attempting to accomplish, which then lowers the intensity of preparation.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of veterans struggle with that, because you're like going and you're like, we gotta get this done. And now I'm waiting on you, and it's been 3 days, and you're like, dude, this got to get done. I had a situation where I was blowing up senior leaders because they're like, things are on hold and you need to get them moving, and we fixed it, and I'm like trying to get their approval, and it's their off day. I'm at work on my off day, and they're not answering, and I'm like, you cannot sit here and tell me that this is a big deal in a meeting, call me out, and then not answer the phone. I was really upset about that. I think it's really hard for us as veterans to go away from the lack of ownership and the intensity. I think really you said something important. What I got out of what you said is urgency. We have a sense of urgency with everything that we do, and then it stays with us. And that's really hard to get your body and mind to move or work in a different direction. You know, I go home and I think about work all weekend, what we can do better, where can we improve, how can I, do X, Y, Z. But like some of my buddies I work with, they're like, I didn't even think about work all week. I'm like, I could tell all weekend. I could tell because you came to the first meeting on Monday and you're not ready. Like, the other day I came into a meeting and they didn't have anything that we had been working on for updates for 3 weeks, and I came into the meeting and I said, it's apparent that you guys haven't done what you're supposed to do. After 3 weeks of multiple meetings, you don't have what's going to happen. So this meeting is closed. And I'll be sending an email out to your leadership. And my team came back like, you're yelling at us. I'm like, I didn't yell at y'all. I just said you didn't do what you were supposed to. So therefore, there's not a meeting. And the team was like, whoa, this isn't the Army. I'm like, first of all, I was in the Marine Corps. Second of all, I didn't think that was that bad. You guys didn't do what you're supposed to do. Period. And, so I think veterans will struggle with that significantly.
What was it like for you, now a civilian, that first day as a civilian being out of the Marine Corps? And was it compound? Did you already have a job lined up?
No.
So what was it like?
It was kind of terrifying. Now you have to go back to, you as a senior leader, you're telling your Marines, because you're from a position of experience, you got to do X, Y, Z. You got to do X, Y, Z, and all of those conversations haunt me. It's like, all right, now you were telling them, now you got to put your money where your mouth is because your whole family depends on it. So there's a significant amount of pressure. It's weird how quiet it got. A lot of people say it gets quiet after you get out.
Were you into the process with hiring for companies when you got out, or what
No.
I'm getting at is, did you do anything? You mentioned doing SgtMaj,
Yep.
and you went to work for like a biotech company.
Yep.
Was your interest in biotech, or was that just what was available to you?
Yeah, so I actually kicked myself over this because I went to Hiring Our Heroes, and I had 2 different companies reach out, Tesla and the biotech company, Kite. Tesla wanted to do remote, and I didn't really want to work in a remote type environment as I transitioned, because I know from being in the positions I've been in that my strong suit is in person with people. Online is not going to help me. A hybrid situation would help me, but online would not, in my mind. And I was there to try to learn and move forward. So I ended up choosing Kite, which I kind of kicked myself over that because I didn't have a good experience with that company. SkillBridge is, companies are required when they do SkillBridge to have a position available. Doesn't mean I'll get it, but have a position available. And the first thing they told 6 of us, we don't have any positions available, which is like, that's a whole separate conversation of frustration. So
are you in the program, but then just sitting on your thumbs?
No, we were working, doing things, but with the understanding,
not to the position that you thought you were going to be gaining experience in.
Right. Well, not even that. Like, I can't. There's not a job for me to earn. Like, the doors are all closed, and you see what I'm saying? Like,
oh, so you're doing SkillBridge with the potential that when you EAS out, you can move right into a position.
Right. And that's the intent of that particular SkillBridge is you're required by the handbook of skill, because Sergeant Major and me went and read all of the things, and I'm like upset. I'm like, this is BS, and if it's happening to me, who else is it happening to? Anyways, so didn't get that job, and then now I'm like, so that was 90 days of my 6 months of SkillBridge. Of terminal. So now I'm on terminal leave, and now I'm like sitting at my desk, kind of twirling around on my seat, looking at the ceiling, like, what am I going to do?
So you had, at that point in time, had no prospects.
No, I had been applying too. So, apply. What's funny, and this is very important for those that transition. Your resume matters, but it doesn't. So, I applied to I think in the company I work at right now, I applied to 45 positions and got what I call the Dear John letter. Like, thank you. It's not you. It's us. Conversation. And
You're a great person, but
right.
it just
you can't do this job. And I think really, I was having a hard time translating. From a SAR major perspective, it's really difficult to translate because you're involved in everything from operations to HR. And so it is very difficult to try to look at what their requirements are and say, how do I match this requirements? But I spent a lot of time putting messages out. And then I started going to, they have the veteran beer club, which is a good place to network. And I would sit down and schedule time to talk with veterans and kind of see about their roles. And you get talked to about this in transition, but none of that really panned out. I went to another one that I can't remember the name, but I'm going to go again next month. But it was a Marine transition. It's led by a retired helicopter guy. I should have wrote that down because it's very important. Because it's the reason why I got my job today. They meet up once a month on a Tuesday, and you stand up and introduce yourself, and then they have a guest speaker, and then there's other companies that are actually looking for potential candidates at higher level positions that you can meet. And I ended up meeting a lady by the name of Julie that works at Northrop. Put her card in my pocket and didn't think nothing else of it, and kept applying. And finally I'm like, I need to talk to people. So I started scheduling meetings. So I would get my leads, so to speak, from going to the different networking availability to me, and then I would try to set up meetings and talk to them. So that's what I was doing for a long period of time. The other part that I haven't mentioned is that I was lucky enough to have a guy named Michael Nichols help me. And Mike did 11 years in the Marine Corps and then worked at the VA for the remainder of the retirement period. He's kind of known as Staff Sergeant Nichols. He was a drill instructor. He did Black Dawn and those things. I met him in 2021, I believe. On base, they put F-45. Are you familiar with F-45? So F-45 is a CrossFit fitness thing.
You do the stations.
Mark Wahlberg is part of the ownership or brand. And I met Mike by being forced to, all the Sergeant Majors had to go work out at the F-45. I met him that day and I loved F-45. I ended up taking F-45 and implementing it for the basic composition platoon of Marines that were struggling with standards, and worked out with them, which worked wonders for our morale and welfare of those Marines. But I met Mike there and built a relationship with him, and he just kind of took me under his wing like a younger brother and was like, hey, what are you doing for transition? Or, are you getting out? And he really helped me out, and ended up helping me land my first job at a veteran company that helps with disability. And I worked there for about 90 days.
I'm willing to bet that many of us, men, women who serve in these careers, we have people like that who come into our field of vision, whatever you want to refer to it as. And they say little nuggets, but you got to be in the right headspace to hear it.
Right.
And then you got to be in the right headspace to move on it. Because we can all look back at our career and somebody gave us a piece of advice. You're like, I wish I would have listened. Not because I heard what they said. I wish I would have listened to what they said and processed it and implemented it.
Yeah, that's the thing that, that's where I was talking about earlier. Can you receive the information and do you have the skill set to execute? I think is probably better said from my part. But I agree with that. Because I was already educated. So when I met Mike just kind of said, hey, you already have the skill set. You're going to be successful. So he was giving me that confidence because you're sitting there and no one's responding to your resume. And you're like, I must suck. And they have a term for it, but I forget it. But it's like that imposter syndrome. I'm like, when I was getting out here and there, so when I was active duty here and there, I'm like, that's not going to be me. And what's interesting about the veterans that are transitioned, they talk to me like I talk to other people, but now I'm on the other side. So I know what you're telling me is not going to work. It's just not. But you could say it makes you feel better. But like that's the part that in transition is really tough. Is like being able to hear, listen, and then try to execute on those things. I also did Vet CTAP, which was really great, and it's a program that helped me with my resume, and then had my resume and do interviews with like senior level HR guys from other companies that are prior military. I look at your resume and tell you whether it's good or not, and then ask you a bunch of questions to see if you can answer it. One of the programs that I did in transition as well is 4Block. I don't know if you've heard of that, but 4Block was built by a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. And now it's across the nation. And what they do is they take you around and introduce you. You have like this curriculum that you have to do, but then you go to different organizations. So like Cox Cables, for example, and Sony and all these things. And you go meet veterans there and they do presentations. You get a chance to talk to people. And it's pretty great program.
Going back to your previous comment about your resume doesn't do as much as you think it does. Yeah. It's obviously still a requirement.
Right.
What's your experience though, now that bringing the AI thing in there, where they're evaluating resumes from a computer perspective, and if you don't hit the required checkboxes, your application doesn't even make it beyond that initial screening.
Right. Yeah, I look at that differently. I think because like it's all about people. To me, it doesn't matter about the AI. It matters, can you get a physical person to see it? How you get them to see it doesn't necessarily need to come through that area. It could come in the form of, hey, can you look at this resume? Oh, the resume looks pretty good. Send it to your HR rep. HR rep reviews it and says, okay, they meet the basic wickets. I can pull them up into your queue for you to review officially. And that's how you get by AI. AI, like I know I was getting rejection. I just got rejections from the company that I work at now 2 weeks ago. It was like I'm like, dude, I applied for this 2 years ago. Why am I just now getting a rejection? I've been working for the company for 2 years. I thought it was interesting. So, I mean, the AI part, I was heavily on that. Like I was on YouTube looking at all these people and how they format. And I'm like, I got to format my resume. And
what was the biggest thing that changed in your resume when you said you went through that? Was it Veteran CTAP?
Yeah.
Was that the one that helped you kind of clean up or revamp your resume?
Yeah. So I got help so first of all, I had my resume from TAPS, which was not good. And then I went to Hiring Our Heroes. They helped me. And then I looked at my buddy's resume and I used some of his stuff. And then I went to Vet. What Vet CTAP did really, they kind of called out some things that I could make better. But what they really helped me with is interviewing. So looking at my resume and preparing stories. Now being a hiring manager where I hear people go, like the STAR method, and I think they called it the EAR method, which is example, action. I forget what the R is. Anyways, so
isn't R always the resolutions? Like, yeah. What did you recognize? What did you implement? How did it change? What was its resolution, or something to that effect?
Yeah. So that's important because I'm a hiring manager. I got a lot of things going on, and what I'm looking for in my job is your ability to speak to senior leaders. So that's not on the resume or on the recs. That's me saying, okay, how do you communicate your skill set, and are you going to be able to speak to people where they listen to you? So if you come in and you haven't done your STAR method and you haven't done any practice with it, and I ask you a question and then you ramble for 15 minutes, I'm going to let you go because I already know. Like as soon as you start rambling, I'm like, I don't want this candidate. Right? Most people won't tell you that, but that's the reality. So like going through that program and being very concise and then folding in the examples back to other questions is important. And it has to be clear. It cannot be just this long run-on sentence because you're going to lose everybody on the call.
I think, unfortunately, many of us we over rely on the titles that we had, what that skill set was, but we never cross that bridge and talk about how do I implement it. Hey, I was a squad leader. Hey, I was a team leader. Hey, I was this. I was a staff sergeant. Okay,
that's great.
That's a title.
Right.
What did you do, which is important, but how does it apply to what we're talking about now? And it's like you said, being able to talk, being able to sit across the table and tell somebody, hey, your company does A, B, and C. Here's what I bring to the table for these situations.
100%. I think the fitness report from the Marine Corps side is good. And the promotion system, from far as what I've seen, is better than the other branches when it comes to the ability to get seen and not take long periods of time. My brother spent a long period of time as an E7, ended up retiring as an E8 in the Air Force. I got the opportunity to go to the Air Force Academy as a first sergeant, and I had to do a fitness report from them in their format. Their format is very similar to what corporate is. Like, what did you do and what was the impact, right? And that helped me out. Looking back at that, I'm like, man, I was actually going back to that fitness report, helping to build my resume because it helped me frame it out. And it gave me kind of real world examples. So I think the Air Force does that really, really well. That was a great experience, by the way.
What got you to go to the Air Force Academy?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know this, but when I was like a sergeant, I was in sergeant's course in Lejeune, and we were like moving from building to building, and I saw this Air Force guy, and I was like, what's he doing here? It was like an E6 or E7. I didn't know at that moment that you can go to other branches, senior enlisted academies. And so like in that moment, I was like, man, I want to be in the Air Force Academy one day. I want to go to the Air Force Academy and beat the Air Force at their own game, because they're always calling us dumb or stupid, right? You know, that's the kind of low key joke between the services and the Marines, are jarheads. Fast forward, I was a first sergeant in Okinawa, and it was very difficult to get any E8s because master sergeants and first sergeants have to go to the senior academy. To go to the Marine Corps Academy is very difficult to get into. And one day my sergeant major called me up and was like, hey, do you want to go to the Air Force Academy? And I'm like, yes, because I immediately thought back. And up in that point, I had done some an NCO course where it was like all the senior leaders ran a non-commissioned officers course with all the branches. So we had Air Force, Army, Navy, everybody from E5 to E7 or E6, E4 to E6, sorry, in there. And we were doing some training. So now I'm like familiar with the joint operations. So I'm like, yeah, 100% send me to the Air Force Academy. Montgomery, Alabama.
So is it not regularly discussed, the idea of going to a joint branch?
It's not regularly discussed. Maybe a few years ago. Now it's more prominent. And the Marines are always like, you should go to the Marine Corps Academy, because if you don't go, you're not going to get promoted. And I told the sergeant major, and in my mindset, I was like, hey, sergeant major, if I go to the Air Force Academy, can I still go to the Marine one? Because I don't want to not get promoted. So he was like, you'll be fine.
Famous last words.
Right. I ended up going to the Air Force Academy. And that helped me out going to another branch, because they act differently. Because the Air Force is so far different than what the Marines is. For example, they call people by their first name, but I'm one of the more senior guys, and they know how Marines are. So they're like, do you want us to call you First Sergeant, or do you want us to call you Josh? I'm like, call me Josh. I'm a part of the team here, right? I want to be respected as Josh. I don't want you to have to respect me because I'm my rank. And I think that's key and critical for the regular world. No one in the room cares you were a sergeant major. And I used to hear that on YouTube, and I'm like, oh my God, it matters. The reality is, yes, it matters, but it doesn't matter in the room if you've only been at the company 6 months and you're trying to tell them to completely change their operations. You have to do a little bit of humble pie and do some work and learn the culture and learn the environment, and then you can make changes. Like right now, I'm at 2 years, and I'm just now at the point where I'm all right. I can execute, and I'm going to make recommendations. So.
With that 2 years now, ability to look back, what would be some of the big things that you would have done differently starting out, especially as you were transitioning out?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing that I did that I thought was a win is the education, right? That's a must, right? Like if you are in the military getting ready to transition out and you don't have education, you better get started, because you are not going to be able to afford, especially if you're going to stay in California, you're not going to be able to afford California without that extra income from being able to get a higher paying job. That's the first thing. But when I look back on it, I was so focused on going to Texas. Like, we're going to Texas. Kids, wife, we're going to Texas. And everybody was all for it. My kids, everybody. And then last minute, my kids said, Dad, we want to graduate here. And my daughter was a sophomore. And then I go back to me moving schools, and I know how hard that is. So I'm like,
you either got to get them out before they start high school, or you just let them finish high school.
Right. That's kind of where we're at. My daughter's finishing. My son's going to finish. But I had to make a pivot. So the thing that I learned from that is you need to look at your different COAs. 1, 2, 3. Get 3 COAs and prepare for all 3. But the number one thing that you can do is, those COAs to me would be locations looking back on it. Like, okay, am I going to go to Timpson, Texas? Am I going to go to Houston or Dallas? Or am I going to stay here? And then network. And for those that are transitioning that don't know, network is called making friends. You just got to go make friends, guys. Like, you have to make friends. You cannot be the grouchy, veteran or first responder that doesn't want to talk to anybody. And I get it, because of the things that you see, you kind of feel like you can't connect with people, but there are people out there that will connect with you. You just have to be friendly. You have to approach them. I started out on LinkedIn by reaching out to veterans. I was lucky enough to have Mike that would take me into his circle and introduce me to people, and get me talking to them and help me kind of normalize how to communicate. Because that's the most difficult part, is for a lot of enlisted Marines, the most difficult part is being able to communicate with normal people. So like, officers in the Marine Corps are forced to network, right? Like, you have to come to this event on Friday night. Don't be the lieutenant that don't show up, right? You will come, and you're going to talk to everybody. You're going to talk to the CO. You're going to talk to everybody. Enlisted, we don't really do things like that. And it really hamstrings us in our ability to execute transition, because you have to make friends. And then those friends build trust. And then they trust you enough to bring you on their team. Like, or I trust you enough, like Brian, for example, if he recommended a couple people and I looked at them, gave them an interview, and then our panel selected them. But I look at my job and I'm like, I'm going to bring you onto my team, and I need someone that I can trust that will execute. So just applying to a role and getting into that job is very difficult. Actually, the only company that I applied to that called me back from a straight application was Amazon. And I applied to a specific role for operations manager in San Antonio, Texas, and that said military experience wanted. And then I interviewed with all the enlisted experienced people, and they're like, oh, you were a sergeant major, so they know what that translates to. But the only reason, and they gave me a job offer. The only reason I didn't take that job is I had just accepted the job in here in San Diego with Northrop Grumman. So, because I was desperate at that point. This was like almost 9 months into my transition, and I'm like, if I don't get a job right now, we're going to struggle as a family because of the cost of living. And I did not equate the taxes, right? So I didn't plan for the taxes. And so you need to look at the 3 different COAs. You need to make friends in those areas and build trust with them. That doesn't happen overnight. Like, this is our second time interacting. I wouldn't come up and say, hey man, you got a job for me? It's like, but if you're working with somebody for a long time, you're like around them and you're building a relationship with them, they'll help you out.
What would your advice be for somebody like in your position? You were in San Diego, but your plan was to get to Texas. Yes, you need to network, and you need to network with people who are going to be in Texas. What, from a remote standpoint, what advice do you have for increasing your network?
Yeah, so I went on LinkedIn and I got companies that I was interested in, and I would reach out to veterans, because that's kind of the first step. You reach out to the veteran, and the veteran, you kind of meet with them a few times, and then at the end of the call, say, hey, is there anybody else that I should connect with that isn't a veteran? that could help me see it from their perspective, and that might be able to give me a little bit more advice. Now, remember, you're just making contact with these people. You're not asking for a job. You want to have a good impression on them, because then they might see your application later and say, hey, this guy needs to come forward.
Or vice versa. If you make a good enough impression, a position opens up and they call you like, hey, this just opened up.
Yep. And there's companies out there that come to different shows. Like there was one at in Miramar, and I'm bad remembering names, but it's like a company that helps veterans get certified in building and building codes and like for construction type stuff. And they have networks across the country. They can help you get a job in your area or introduce you to people that can help you get in the job. The Marines have Marine for Life, 4 blocks all over the United States. And they actually have an app that posts the different jobs that are available. So then you can get contact with those people. But again, if you don't have a relationship and you don't have someone that's willing, that trusts you, that's willing to attach your name to them and then advocate for you when you're not in the room, it's really difficult for you to get a job.
What's on the long-term horizon for you? Is going back home to Texas in the plans?
Yeah. My grandfather's 95. So, I'm just seeing him struggle a little bit more, and he needs some more support. And growing up, he was my father. So I'm worried about him, and I want to, go take care of him. Maybe I'll move out to Fort Worth, and I'll be a couple hours from him. I can go make sure that he's taken care of on a weekly basis if I need to. I'm looking at some entrepreneurial things and say, hey, do I want to open my own business? But other than that, I'm just like, hey, I kind of want to go to Texas. I love the weather in San Diego. It's hard because I was in 29 Palms, so it's really hot and dry. I went to Okinawa, it's really hot and moist.
Lejeune.
Went to Lejeune, Cherry Point. San Diego's weather. I mean, like think about like 2 weeks ago, it was like -10 or whatever on the Northeast. Like, I don't know, the weather kind of keeps me going. And the more that I build my network here, the more I'm kind of getting seated more and more here and starting to actually like be able to breathe a little bit and start focusing on my hobbies and things like that. Because all I see is if I go to Texas, that's another transition. And that requires the same level of preparation and all of the things that you need to do. So like if you're saying, hey, Josh, when your kid graduates high school, do you want to move to Texas? Maybe. Can I find a job in Texas?
Well, here's the other factor. What if your kids want to go to college? I'm not saying they're both going to end up at the exact same college, but what if both of them ended up in college in Florida?
Right.
Are you going to go to Texas?
Yeah. So my wife wants to be around our kids. So my daughter just got accepted into Baylor, and that's her number one. And she's like, hey, I'm waiting to see if these other schools.
She ain't turning down Baylor.
Right. You can tell me that all day, but babe, I know I want to support you. I prefer that you go to California school because I'm a veteran. But if you want to go to Baylor, okay. But now it's in Texas, and that's 2 hours from Fort Worth. So we're really just trying to figure out that next chapter in life. When you have kids that are young, it's easier. You just move with them. They'll adapt. But when you have the kids that are going into that stage of college and they've kind of been in this area since they were in the 6th grade, it's kind of more difficult. And to me, their opinions matter. It's easy to say, like some of the old veterans be like, I don't care, I'll just move my kids. Yeah, they're not going to want to talk to you after you're out for a little bit. So
that's it. I think that's one of the huge unspoken aspects of transition is you've done your career in your mind. I don't want to be here anymore, or I do, but that's all you're thinking about. There's so many other pieces that come into play on that chessboard.
Right.
Your spouse, your kids. Is work available?
Taxes.
Right?
Like, Texas doesn't have income tax, right? Like, so there's a lot of things and I think like military people specifically, they don't realize the tax breaks that they get. You will when you get out. You will when you get out. So.
As we bring this in for landing, any last piece of advice, any piece of your career that you really want to get out there, or piece of advice for anybody transitioning, that kind of that one last piece of nugget?
Yeah, I have a lot of things I want to say. I think really I look back on my transition, and the thing that saved me was making friends. You got to build a network. The other thing that I have been trying to do, but I've been facing injury, is exercise. Don't stop working out. If you stop working out, it compounds the level of stress that's on you, whether you're trying to find a job or you're trying to survive your job. And we're used to dealing with stress. But when I look back on my career, the things that saved me from stress was working out. Whether I was lifting, whether I was playing basketball, whether I was doing F45 or CrossFit, like all of those things helped me to deal with whatever stressful things were going on in my day. And so as you get ready to transition, don't stop working out, because it could be easy to do that. And then it could be easy to start drinking or doing other bad things for your body. And that will weigh on you heavily. And then the last thing is like, if you meet somebody that's willing to meet with you, meet with them. The reason I'm here in my role right now is because I called Julie back and I set a meeting with her. I was rejected for a job on a Thursday. On a Friday, the recruiter called me back. I was meeting with Julie the following week. And Julie looked at the rejection file and saw my name and realized that she had a meeting with me. She was like, oh, let me look at this guy. She saw my experience in aviation in the Marine Corps and other areas and was like, hey, why didn't you give this guy an opportunity? And then the recruiter called me back and said, hey, you want to do an interview? And it's the reason why I'm at where I'm at today. So I'm very grateful for Julie. But that doesn't happen unless I go to the networking event where I met Julie, and it doesn't happen by me not talking to Julie. So I had to talk to Julie first, right? So you go to the network event. That's number one. Get out of your feelings. Don't worry about rejection. That happens every day. Talk to people, get their card, set up a meeting, and that cycle over and over again. That's where I got here. And I didn't learn that till 9 months at the end. So if I was doing it all over again, I would already be applying for jobs a year out. Because for those that are not going to listen to network, apply with a job. See how many people call you back right now with your current status. Apply for jobs a year out. Mike told me that. I didn't listen. You got to know your value. You got to be respectful of that. And you got to hold on to that. Like, I had a job and I still kept applying because I knew that's not where I wanted to land. If you got to bring in money and you want to get experience, try new things, but keep applying to where you ultimately want to be, and the door will open up at the right time. And when the door opens up and you're in the breach, help others. So,
well, again, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story. And again, all the best going forward.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
As always, thank you for listening or watching the episode. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out on social media or send me an email. The links are all in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're not already, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. And if you would, please leave me a rating. Ratings do two things. You can tell me what I need to fix or improve, and the more ratings also gets the podcast recommended to more people. Another ask, please share the podcast with anyone you think could benefit from and enjoy it. And last, don't forget, sign up for the newsletter.